What's up everyone, today I want to talk about one of the best builds for sorcerers in Season 5, and it is a pure fireball blasting build. This build uses the unique gloves of the Illuminator and the staff of endless rage to turn off fireballs into what you see here. Just huge, spreading, bouncing balls of damage. Simply press fireball once and the entire screen just fills up with fire. Hold the button down and everything around you just melts. This build can take on almost everything in the game very easily. It's a very easy build to play. It can do very high pit runs to get you the best materials in the game to 12 out of 12 masterwork your gear. It can do high tier infernal hordes. I've cleared almost every tormented boss with this, and it doesn't require any specific, like really focused great graphics gear. It doesn't require any mythic uniques. It's very simple to play and very simple to build. As long as you can get the two uniques mentioned, the gloves and the staff, which we'll go over, you can get straight into this. So what's the build and how does it work? Fireball. That's it. You just hold down fireball and just beat the game. That's it. With the two uniques, you can cast fireball faster. The fireballs bounce, they spread further, they deal more damage. And every third fireball is all of that, but bigger, better, and more. On top of this, we have the Ice and Flame Shield to have big up-time armor defenses, letting us push this really high-end content, and it's very forgiving if you do get hit. And then we take the Lightning Spear and Ice Blades to lower our cooldowns, trigger a few things, and work with Tal Rashar's Iridescent Ring, which gives us 20% additional damage per different element of spell you use. So let's get into it in detail. Let's talk about the skill tree. Okay, let's go through it. So at the top, we want to put 2 points into Firebolt, so you can put 1 point in there and then 1 point into Enhance. Doesn't really matter, we don't use it, but we do enchant it later on. So put 2 points in to unlock your core skill. In the core, you want to put 5 out of 5 in Firebolt. This is going to rank up massively once you start getting into this build, getting your uniques, because lots of them have plus ranks to Firebolt on them. You see, I've got 18 out of 5 right now, and I'm really not that funneled into this gear. I still can go a lot further, so I can see this easily going up to way past 20. So yeah, you want a 5 out of 5 Fireball, then you want to put Enhanced, increase its radius, and then you want to put Destructive. Crit strike damage is increased by 20%, increased to 30 when hitting at least 3 enemies. We do a lot with crit strike in this build. You'll see down with the key passive. This is a very crit focused build, so this is the perfect, final part for this. You want to put 1 point into the passive Devastation, so you can put 3 points into Dominance. Your core skills deal 12% increased damage when above 50 mana. The thing about this build is it has no mana issues once you've got it in a good place. You can just you saw in the start in the intro, you can just permacast fireballs and your mana's full. So you always have that 12% increased damage. And then you want to move on. We take a lot of defensives. So we go Fire Shield and the enhancement, and then Mystical. So when it ends, they're stunned and you get a crit strike. Again, it works with the crit build that we're going for. You also get a crowd control by stunning them. Then we go into Teleport. 1 point again, we go Enhanced, and then we go Shimmering for a damage reduction. 1 point into Ice Armor, and then 1 point into Enhanced, so you get mana regen as well. Helps, again, keep that permanent mana regen. 3 points into Glass Cannon for 18% more damage. And I just chuck we get quite a few things that work well with Lucky Hit, so I do think it's worth chucking 1 point into Elemental Attunement. You do see, as you're fighting, every now and again, one of your cooldowns just massively comes back. It'll have like a 10-second cooldown and it'll instantly come back. It's helpful. It can get you at a pinch. It's really good. So I think a couple of points in Lucky Hit does work well. Speaking of Lucky Hit, 1 point here for increased Lucky Hit does work quite well. Then we go into the big defensives here. 1, 3, 3. This is just all your defensives. You want to put 1 point into Ice Blades, 1 point into Enhanced, and 1 point into Summoned Ice Blades. This gives us cooldown reduction basically. And the way it works, you summon an Ice Blade, it attacks the enemy, makes them vulnerable, and then it reduces its cooldown every time it hits. With this here, it also reduces the cooldown of your other abilities. So once you're on a boss fight, you've got 3 or 4 Ice Blades out, just chipping away. All your cooldowns are coming back. So all your defensives are coming back. So your shields, you use them, they've got like a long cooldown, they've got like a, I don't know what, 18-second cooldown. This is bringing it down faster. You might get it back in 6-7 seconds. So you can fight harder bosses, fight harder content, and keep having your shield. As soon as it breaks, you put another one back on. Then we take Lightning Spear, Enhanced, and Invoked. These two work really well because we get the shock and we get the extra elements. So we're already doing fire. This gives us ice. This gives us lightning. So think of each one of these as 20% additional damage from the ring, because for every different element, we get 20% more damage. Okay, then we take 3 points into Conjuration, 3% increased damage, 3% movement speed, and 6% mana regen for every active conjuration. That's a conjuration, that's a conjuration. And like I say, the way this works, the bigger your cooldown reduction, the more of these you get out, which means that will scale too. Then we move down and we don't take any masteries. It's just not needed. 3 points into Inner Flames gives us increased damage. 3 points into Devouring Blaze gives us increased crit strike damage against burning enemies. They will always be burning. And if they're crowd controlled, the bonus increased to 70%. And we have a lot of things that crowd control them too. The reason they're always burning is because of an enchantment. So if you're curious, but we'll go through that soon. And then crippling flames. Your pyromancy skills have up to a 28% chance to immobilize enemies. You can just put 1 point into here. I've got 3 from items. Just put 1 point in because an immobilize is like a stun. And it's if you manage to hit a lucky hit and stun them, that counts as a crowd control, which triggers that. So just 1 point. You don't want to play too heavy in lucky hit because it's so random and hard to spec into. Down here, we go 3 points into fiery surge. For the mana regen, 90% mana regen with items as well, which is crazy. 3% into Soulfire, skills cost 12% less mana and deal 6% increased damage. And then you want to go into Warmth. Every 1 second you heal, I just put 1 point in there. And then 1 point into Endless Pyre, you deal increased burning damage to enemies for each second they remain burning, up to 5%. You could put more points into this if you're going into bosses. You can dip some out somewhere else and put them here if you're going purely into bosses. But generally, everything just drops in a couple of seconds. You don't need it. And then finally for the key passive, Esu's Ferocity. Your fire crit strike damage is increased by 25% against enemies with a lot of life, and your crit strike chance is increased by 10% against enemies below 50% life. Crit strikes that kill enemies on or hit a boss grant both bonuses for 3 seconds. This is just huge. You know, we have so much with like tempering, gear, stats, all these things that we can hit really high crit chance and we can hit even higher crit damage. So what you end up with is what you see where the fireballs go out, everything crits and the screen is just gone. Which is why in Infernal Hordes, you can wipe the screen, it respawns, you wipe it again in just 2 fireballs. So yeah, this is the whole build. Okay, and on to the enchantments. So there are 2, and these are the ones I would recommend. First, Firebolt. Unfortunately, we live in a world where Firebolt is almost mandatory in every single sorcerer build in the game. It's frustrating that it gives so much that it's almost impossible to not have Firebolt as one of your enchantments. So direct damage from skills applies burning damage over 8 seconds. The reason we want that is because there is so many things that we get in the skill tree, the Paragon Board, on our items that are damage reduction from burning enemies, increased damage to burning enemies, increased mana from burning. There's so much from burning enemies, and this triggers that instantly in every scenario. So we have to take Firebolt. The second one, you have a bit more freedom on. You have the option of Fireball or Ice Blades are good ones. So Fireball is when you kill an enemy, they explode in a fireball for 50% of its damage, which is massive because we put a ton of points into Fireball. With the unique gloves and the unique staff, we get plus ranks in Fireball like implicit on the unique. So you get, I don't know what it is. It's like 10 from the 2. And then if you have a great graphics on that or you masterwork it, that goes even higher. Right now, I've got 18 ranks in Fireball. So that means that when they explode in Fireball damage, they're getting that massive boost from the ranks that we've got in it, which is just so good. This is a game changer for Infernal Hordes where you have these big packs of enemies. Then instead of that, if you don't want to take that, you could take Ice Blades. Every 40-second in cooldowns you spend, you summon an Ice Blade on a random enemy. I'd say that's potentially better for bosses. If you're going on a boss and you're summoning loads and loads of Ice Blades and you're trying to get your cooldowns back and you're pushing like hard content, that's pretty good. So I'd potentially move those around if you're doing single target things. Other than that, I wouldn't take anything else. That's pretty much the 2 things I'd consider. Okay, let's go over the aspects, the gear, the tempering, all that stuff. And I'll use the build that I've linked down below. This is the full build. It's got everything on here, the skills, skill tree, the Paragon Board, and all the gear. So we'll go through it on here. So first up, let's go over the gear. And I'll start top to bottom. We've got Aspect of Concentration. Casting a Conjuration gives you up to 25% damage reduction for 5 seconds. Very important at endgame, and we have lots of conjurations in this build. Then we go Snow Veiled on the chest. Iced Armor makes you unstoppable, perfect for getting out of trouble, and grants you 25% damage reduction for 5 seconds. Again, another damage reduction. If you're doing a leveling build, you can just go damage, damage, damage. But when you start pushing really high pits, really high Infernal Hordes, you do need that damage reduction, especially on a Sorcerer. Okay, let's talk about the stats and the tempering. So I don't want to go through every single one. It's all here if you want to go through it in detail, but just you need to tailor it to your own build a little bit. Like don't take armor if you're already at the armor cap, things like that. So do have a look and work out what you want and what you think you need. But here's a really good template if you just want some guidance. I'm going to go over some things that are really good to look for. Number 1, intelligence. And I've starred the ones that would be good to masterwork. Intelligence is really good because in Season 5, they buffed the core stats. So for every point in intelligence, you get much more this season than you did before. So it's very, very worthwhile now, not only getting intelligence, but masterworking it. Cooldown reduction is good because it reduces our defensives and gives us them back faster, letting us push harder content. And it works really well with Ice Blades. Next, you want to be looking for crit chance, crit damage, and attack speed where you can get it. So you can see here crit strike damage, crit strike chance, and attack speed. This build does not have a mana problem. So if you can push your attack speed high enough, you can just deal more damage. It's as simple as that. You're not going to hit a wall where it's like, oh, I'm out of mana and now I've got to use my basic attack. Doesn't really happen. So you can just keep pushing your attack speed, and crit works really well with Esu's passive and lots of other things that just give us more damage. So crit strike chance, crit strike damage, and attack speed are all really good. Next, you want to look for ranks. Glass Cannon is just pure damage. Devouring Blaze is really good as well. Potent Warding is pretty good if you can get that. And that's it really, because everything else comes on our uniques, which we can't change. You know, you've got ranks to Fireball and attack speed on the gloves. You've got ranks to Fireball and chance for Fireball to cast twice on the weapon. So you don't need to worry about everything else. There's not much to really micromanage here. So, okay, and then on to tempering. And we don't have that many items to temper because we have so many uniques. So here's what you're going to be looking for. Defensives, bonus to warmth is good. It's a passive. We talked about it in the skill tree. It's nice to have. It's not crazy. And there's not much really that goes in that slot that we need to worry about. So that's a good one to take for defensives. You can take that on your helmet, your chest, and your legs. Then you've got utility in those slots as well. And crowd control duration is pretty good because we have stuff that goes with crowd control. And then you can take the utility, the lucky hit, chance to freeze. That's good as well. You can take that. The thing about that is if you don't hit freeze and you hit like stun or slow or something, I can't remember what's there. There's a few others. It's not bad because it's still a crowd control. And we have so much that works with when you crowd control an enemy. So yeah, they're the good things to take there. On the amulet, we've got crit strike damage for offensive, which is incredible. And then mobility, movement speed, because that scales with Esu's Heirloom, where you get increased crit strike based on your movement speed. And then on top of that, movement speed is just good for getting around. Then on the ring, crit strike damage again is perfect, best in slot. And then I went bonus of Fiery Surge for another little boost to our passive. But that's it. It's not crazy because the big juicy ones come from your weapon, and that's covered. It's already covered. So yeah, that's it for tempering. Okay, Paragon Board time. And we've got a 8 border. We've got 8 boards and we've got 7 glyphs. And you have a choice. You can either go for more glyphs, or you can put more points into each board and go for the legendary nodes. Luckily with Sorcerer, luckily or unluckily, I don't know. But with Sorcerer, lots of the nodes are element specific. So if we're going for like a very fire heavy build, getting things like lightning damage doesn't help us. So we go more on the glyph side, which is why we do stuff like this. We pull on a board and we just go in, we get the glyph and we leave. So we can do that quite a lot. In this, we do get the glyphs we need, and we get the nodes we need, like the Searing Heat node. So let's go over it. At the bottom, we come in, we go down the right side for non-physical damage. We get the exploit glyph first, and then we go down both sides for the non-physical and the resistance. We hit all we hit the requirements on every single one, so I won't go over that individually. On the next one, we go for static surge. We lay it down like this so we can go straight through, and we take destruction, which is increased crit damage, and crit strikes increase the damage the enemies take. On the next board, we go burning instinct, and we go for the flame feeder. For every 5 decks, increased damage to burning targets. Everything will be burning because we enchant fireball, so don't need to worry about that. And 10% increased direct damage to burning enemies. Again, will just be on permanently. We get the things here as well: increased burning damage, damage reduction from burning enemies, things like that. Whereas in here, we just kind of go straight through. In the next board, we go Enchantment Master, and we go for reinforced, boost the rare nodes, and damage reduction while you have a barrier. We're going to have a barrier a lot. We boost non-physical damage, and we boost resistance to help us hit our resistance cap. Next board, we go Icefall, and we go for Conjurer, mainly for the second bit, not really for the damage, but for the second bit. Conjuration skills have 20% increased duration. The reason that's so good is because the longer they're out, the more they're proccing the cooldown reduction and reducing the cooldowns on our defensive skills. Then you go get the things here just to hit all the points. On the next board, we go Frigid Fate, and we go for Unleash, boost magical nodes, and after spending mana, you get increased damage and increased mana regeneration, which is very good because this build, once it's finished, doesn't have a mana problem, and this helps get us in that direction. You can take the cold resistance and the vulnerable damage, which just is a bonus. On the next board, we go for Elemental Summoner, and we go for Tactician, which is a damage boost when you cast a defensive skill, which we'll be doing a lot of. You get the Conjuration skill damage, so we can get into the other things here, like the Dex, to hit the requirement. We go over and we get Legendary Node, the Elemental Summoner. The Conjuration skills have a 10% reduced cooldown or mana cost, which is incredible with what we're trying to do here. Then I would go down to the bottom as well. I don't usually do this, to get this attack speed. Attack speed scales so well with this build that it's worth getting all this attack speed down there. Then we leave on the right, we put Searing Heat on, we go up here, we get all the fire damage bonuses, and we get the Searing Heat Legendary Node. Pyromancy skills have 12% increased crit strike chance, and deal increased damage equal to 20% of your damage with fire bonus up to 60%. So yeah, that's the board. I've played around with this a lot. I've moved it, I've deleted it like 3 times and rebuilt it. And this is as good as I can find it. I can feel the damage increase from where I went from before to this. If you think of anything that works better, let me know. But this feels really good. I made a lot of Paragon boards and this feels pretty good. I don't think I've missed anything vital. Maybe there's some glyphs that work better in certain situations, but this feels really good as an all-rounder for the build we've got. But that's it. That's it. We're done. That's everything. Everything's here. The skill tree, how we lay it out, the enchantments, what's on your bar, the gear, the gems, the good and the bad, everything like that. It's all here. Link down below. That's it for the video. If this has helped, consider subscribing to the channel. I make guides like this every season for leveling, endgame, things like that. But yeah, that's it from me. Leave a comment if there's anything you want to add, or if there's anything you want to ask. I'm happy to answer any questions, but that's it from me. Take care, and I'll catch you in the next one.